Brazil's journey to its current form is marked by several significant conflicts. These wars shaped its borders, its society, and its identity. The War of Independence, fought from 1822 to 1824, was a crucial first step. It pitted Brazilians loyal to Prince Pedro against troops loyal to Portugal. The outcome was the birth of the Brazilian Empire. This newly independent nation, however, soon found itself embroiled in other disputes. These early conflicts were essential in forging a sense of national unity, albeit a fragile one. The vastness of the territory and regional differences often tested the central authority established in Rio de Janeiro. These struggles defined the geographical and political contours of the burgeoning nation. The Cisplatin War, from 1825 to 1828, was another defining moment. Brazil fought against the United Provinces of the Rio de la Plata, modern-day Argentina. The dispute was over the Banda Oriental, present-day Uruguay. The war ended in a stalemate. Uruguay emerged as an independent buffer state. This outcome had long-lasting implications for regional power dynamics. Brazil learned hard lessons about its military capabilities and the complexities of international relations in South America. The financial strain of the war also contributed to Emperor Pedro I's declining popularity. It highlighted the challenges Brazil faced in asserting its dominance in the Plate Basin. Later, the Platin War, from 1851 to 1852, saw Brazil intervene in the internal conflicts of Argentina and Uruguay. Allied with Uruguayan Colorados and Argentinian forces opposed to Juan Manuel de Rosas, Brazil sought to secure its southern borders. It also aimed to ensure free navigation on the Plate River system. The decisive Battle of Caseros led to Rosas's downfall. This victory strengthened Brazil's influence in the region for a time. It demonstrated the empire's growing military confidence. However, peace in the region remained elusive. The intricate web of alliances and rivalries continued to simmer, setting the stage for future confrontations that would further test the nation. Brazil's involvement in World War I was initially one of neutrality. The great European conflict seemed distant to many Brazilians. However, Germany's policy of unrestricted submarine warfare changed this stance. Repeated sinking of Brazilian merchant ships carrying vital coffee exports stirred public outrage. This pressure mounted on the government. In October 1917, Brazil declared war on the Central Powers. This decision aligned Brazil with the Allied nations. It was a significant step onto the global stage for the young republic. The motivations were primarily economic and to assert its sovereignty against German aggression at sea. It was also an opportunity to gain international recognition. Brazil's material contributions to World War I were modest but symbolic. The country sent a small naval division, the Divisão Naval em Operações de Guerra, DNOG. This fleet was tasked with patrolling the Atlantic, from the African coast to Gibraltar. They faced harsh conditions and the Spanish flu pandemic, which decimated the crews. Additionally, Brazil sent medical missions to the Western Front in France. These missions provided much-needed care to Allied soldiers. The nation also increased its production of food and raw materials for the Allied war effort. While not a major military power, Brazil's participation signaled its growing international presence and its commitment to the Allied cause. In World War II, Brazil again initially declared neutrality in 1939. President Getúlio Vargas navigated a complex geopolitical landscape. He maintained relations with both Allied and Axis powers. However, pressure from the United States grew. Strategic concerns about the Atlantic narrows between Brazil and West Africa were paramount. German submarine attacks on Brazilian shipping once again became a catalyst. In August 1942, after numerous sinkings and public outcry, Brazil declared war on Germany and Italy. This decision was a pivotal moment. It firmly placed Brazil within the Allied camp. The country's vast coastline and resources became crucial assets for the war effort. Brazil's contribution to World War II was more substantial than in the previous global conflict. The Brazilian Expeditionary Force, FEB, known as the Smoking Cobras, comprised over 25,000 soldiers. They fought bravely in the Italian campaign alongside the U.S. Fifth Army. The FEB participated in key battles like Monte Castelo and Montese. Brazil also played a vital role by granting the United States access to air and naval bases in its northeast. These bases were crucial for anti-submarine warfare in the South Atlantic. They also served as a vital transport link for aircraft and supplies heading to North Africa and Asia. Brazil's participation enhanced its international standing and fostered closer ties with the United States. The War of Canudos, from 1896 to 1897, stands as a tragic and revealing episode in Brazilian history. It took place in the arid backlands, the Sertão of Bahia. A religious mystic named Antonio Conselheiro gathered thousands of followers. These were impoverished peasants, former slaves, and people displaced by drought and social change. They established a self-sufficient settlement called Canudos or Belo Monte. Conselheiro preached against the new Brazilian Republic, which he saw as godless. He also criticized its secular laws, such as civil marriage and the separation of church and state. His movement offered an alternative community based on shared labor and religious devotion. The fledgling Brazilian Republic, established in 1889, viewed Canudos with deep suspicion. Landowners and local priests felt threatened by Conselheiro's influence and the community's autonomy. They portrayed Canudos as a dangerous monarchist and fanatical outpost. The government in Rio de Janeiro, eager to assert its authority and modernize the nation, agreed. They believed Canudos represented a direct challenge to the new order. This perception was fueled by exaggerated reports and a fundamental misunderstanding of the social and economic despair that drove people to join Conselheiro. The state decided that Canudos had to be destroyed, setting the stage for a brutal confrontation. The Brazilian army launched 4 military expeditions against Canudos. The first 2 were humiliatingly defeated by the Sertanejos, who knew the terrain and fought fiercely. These initial failures shocked the nation and amplified fears about the rebellion. The government responded by sending a much larger and better equipped force. The third expedition also faced stiff resistance. Finally, the fourth expedition, numbering thousands of soldiers with modern artillery, besieged Canudos. The fighting was savage. The defenders, including women and children, resisted until the very end. Antonio Conselheiro died of dysentery during the siege. The settlement was razed to the ground in October 1897. The War of Canudos left an indelible mark on Brazil. It exposed the vast social abyss between the coastal cities and the impoverished interior. It highlighted the brutality the state was capable of inflicting on its own citizens. The war became a symbol of resistance against oppression and a testament to the deep-seated social inequalities that plagued Brazil. Euclides da Cunha's literary masterpiece, Os Sertos, Rebellion in the Backlands, immortalized the conflict. His work provided a profound analysis of the land, the people, and the tragic events. Canudos continues to be a powerful reminder of the complex social dynamics and historical grievances that have shaped the nation. It underscores the ongoing struggle for land, dignity, and justice for marginalized communities. Brazil's economy, as of early 2025, is a complex and dynamic entity. It is the largest economy in Latin America. It boasts a diverse range of sectors contributing to its gross domestic product, GDP. The services sector is the most significant contributor. This includes areas like retail, finance, tourism, and information technology. Agriculture remains a powerhouse. Brazil is a leading global exporter of coffee, soybeans, sugar, orange juice, and beef. Its vast arable lands and favorable climate provide a strong foundation for this sector. The industrial sector, though facing challenges, is also substantial. It includes manufacturing of automobiles, airplanes, steel, and petrochemicals. Natural resources, particularly iron ore and oil, are also vital. Recent growth rates in the Brazilian economy have been mixed. The country experienced periods of strong expansion in the early 21st century. This was fueled by a commodity boom and increased domestic consumption. However, it has also faced recessions and periods of slower growth. Factors like political instability, fluctuating commodity prices, and global economic conditions have played a role. Economists in 2025 project modest but positive growth. This is often contingent on continued structural reforms and a stable global economic environment. The potential for growth remains significant, given Brazil's large domestic market and abundant natural resources. Tapping into this potential consistently is the main challenge. Despite its strengths, Brazil's economy faces several persistent challenges. Infrastructure deficits are a major hurdle. Inadequate roads, railways, ports, and energy infrastructure increase business costs and hinder productivity. Bureaucracy and a complex tax system are often cited as impediments to investment and entrepreneurship. Corruption remains a serious concern, diverting public funds and undermining trust in institutions. High levels of income inequality also constrain domestic demand and create social tensions. Addressing these structural issues is crucial for unlocking Brazil's full economic potential and ensuring sustainable, inclusive growth for its population. The government continues to grapple with these deep-rooted problems. The outlook for Brazil's economy involves navigating these challenges while capitalizing on opportunities. The transition to a greener economy presents new avenues for growth, particularly in renewable energy and sustainable agriculture. Technological innovation and digitalization are transforming various sectors. Continued efforts to improve the business environment and attract foreign investment are considered essential. Maintaining fiscal discipline while addressing social needs is a delicate balancing act for policymakers. The path ahead requires consistent policy implementation and a long-term vision to build a more resilient and prosperous economy for all Brazilians. The global economic climate will also play a significant role in shaping Brazil's economic trajectory. Section 5. Brazil among giants, a BRICS economic comparison. Brazil is a founding member of the BRICS group. This acronym refers to 5 major emerging national economies: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. When comparing Brazil's economy within this influential bloc, several key indicators stand out. In terms of nominal GDP, China is by far the largest, followed by India. Brazil and Russia typically vie for the 3rd or 4th position within the group, with South Africa having the smallest economy. When measured by purchasing power parity, the ranking can shift slightly, but China and India still dominate. Brazil's economic size gives it significant weight in Latin America, but within BRICS, it is a mid-tier player in terms of overall output. Inflation rates have been a persistent concern for Brazil historically, and this continues to be a point of comparison within BRICS. While China and India have often managed relatively stable inflation, Brazil, Russia, and South Africa have experienced more volatility. In recent years, as of early 2025, Brazil has been working to keep inflation within its target range. This often requires careful monetary policy by its central bank. High inflation erodes purchasing power and can deter investment. Therefore, managing it effectively is crucial for economic stability and competitiveness relative to its BRICS partners. Each BRICS nation faces unique inflationary pressures, influenced by domestic policies and global factors. Trade relations are a vital aspect of the BRICS dynamic. China is a dominant trading partner for almost all BRICS countries, including Brazil. Brazil's exports to China are heavily concentrated in commodities like soybeans, iron ore, and oil. Imports from China consist mainly of manufactured goods and electronics. Brazil also maintains significant trade relationships with other BRICS nations, though often on a smaller scale compared to its trade with China or traditional partners like the United States and the European Union. Efforts are ongoing to diversify trade within the BRICS bloc and promote more value-added exports from Brazil to its partners, reducing reliance on primary commodities. Comparing overall economic health, each BRICS nation exhibits unique strengths and weaknesses. Brazil boasts a strong agricultural sector and a large domestic market. Russia is rich in energy resources. India has a booming services sector and favorable demographics. China is the world's manufacturing hub. South Africa has significant mineral wealth. However, Brazil also faces challenges like infrastructure gaps and lower productivity growth compared to some Asian BRICS members. The new development bank, established by BRICS, aims to mobilize resources for infrastructure and sustainable development projects in member countries. This initiative offers a platform for collaboration and mutual economic advancement among these diverse and influential economies. Section 6. Navigating the Fiscal Maze, Recent Policies and Their Ripple Effects. Recent fiscal policies in Brazil have aimed to address long-standing structural issues. These include high government debt and persistent budget deficits. Successive administrations have introduced measures intended to restore fiscal sustainability. One notable policy has been a constitutional spending cap. This limited the growth of public expenditures to the inflation rate of the previous year. While credited by some with helping to control spending, it has also been criticized. Critics argue it has unduly squeezed public investment and social programs. The debate over the cap's effectiveness and fairness continues into 2025, with discussions about potential revisions or alternative fiscal frameworks. The impact of these fiscal policies on Brazil's economic performance has been multifaceted. Proponents argue that fiscal consolidation is essential for building investor confidence. They believe it can lead to lower interest rates and stimulate private investment. Indeed, periods of tighter fiscal control have sometimes coincided with improved market sentiment. However, critics contend that austerity measures can dampen economic growth in the short term. They argue such measures reduce aggregate demand and can exacerbate recessions. The actual economic performance has often been a result of complex interactions between fiscal policy, monetary policy, global economic conditions, and domestic political stability. Finding the right balance remains a key challenge. Public services, particularly health, education, and social welfare, have felt the impact of fiscal adjustments. When government spending is constrained, these essential services often face budget cuts or slower funding growth. This can lead to a deterioration in the quality and accessibility of public services. For a country like Brazil with significant social inequalities, this is a major concern. For example, underfunding in public education can widen the gap between private and public schools. Similarly, constraints on healthcare spending can strain the public health system, which serves the majority of the population. The social costs of fiscal austerity are a significant part of the policy debate. Pension reform has been another major component of Brazil's recent fiscal policy agenda. The country's pension system was widely seen as unsustainable due to generous benefits and demographic changes. Reforms aimed to increase the retirement age and change benefit rules. These changes were intended to reduce long-term fiscal pressure. While considered necessary by many economists, pension reforms are often politically difficult and unpopular. They directly affect millions of citizens. The long-term effects of these reforms on public finances and social equity will unfold over decades. The government continues to seek ways to ensure social security sustainability while protecting the most vulnerable segments of the population. Section 8. Bridging the Divide. Social Challenges in Contemporary Brazil. Income inequality remains one of Brazil's most persistent and profound social challenges. Despite some progress in poverty reduction over the past decades, the gap between the rich and the poor is still vast. The Gini coefficient, a common measure of inequality, consistently ranks Brazil among the most unequal countries in the world. This disparity is evident in access to resources, opportunities, and quality of life. Wealth and income are highly concentrated at the top. Regional inequalities are also stark. The wealthier South and Southeast regions often contrast sharply with the less developed North and Northeast. Addressing this deep-rooted inequality is fundamental for social cohesion and sustainable development. Access to quality education is another critical social issue. While enrollment rates in basic education are high, significant disparities exist in the quality of schooling. Public schools, which serve the majority of children, often suffer from underfunding, lack of resources, and teacher shortages. This contrasts with well-resourced private schools, accessible mainly to wealthier families. This educational divide perpetuates social inequality across generations. Improving the quality of public education, investing in teacher training, and ensuring equitable resources are crucial steps. Higher education access has expanded, but challenges remain in completion rates and aligning graduate skills with labor market demands. Beyond income and education, Brazilians face other significant social issues. Access to adequate healthcare is a major concern for many. Although Brazil has a universal public health system, it often struggles with long waiting times, insufficient funding, and disparities in service quality, especially in remote areas. Public security is another pressing problem. High rates of crime and violence, particularly in urban peripheries, affect daily life and create a climate of fear. Issues like housing shortages, sanitation, and environmental degradation in densely populated areas also contribute to social vulnerability. These interconnected challenges require comprehensive and sustained policy interventions. Efforts to tackle these social problems involve a range of government programs and civil society initiatives. Social welfare programs like Bolsa Familia have played a role in reducing extreme poverty and improving health and education outcomes for vulnerable families. Investments in infrastructure and public services are ongoing, though often constrained by fiscal limitations. Civil society organizations are active in advocating for human rights, environmental protection, and social justice. However, the scale of these challenges requires long-term commitment, political will, and inclusive policies that address the structural causes of inequality and exclusion. Building a more equitable and just society remains a central aspiration for Brazil. Section 9. Cultural threads and economic pathways, indigenous peoples, immigrants, and Brazil's development. Indigenous cultures have profoundly shaped Brazil, despite the historical violence and marginalization these communities have faced. Their influence is woven into the fabric of Brazilian society. This is evident in cuisine, with ingredients like manioc, atay, and guarana being staples. Many Portuguese words in Brazil have Tupi-Guarani origins, reflecting early interactions. Indigenous knowledge of medicinal plants and sustainable forest management is increasingly recognized. However, indigenous peoples continue to fight for their land rights, cultural preservation, and protection against encroachment from mining, logging, and agriculture. Their struggles highlight ongoing tensions over resources and development models in contemporary Brazil, particularly in the Amazon region. Immigrant communities have also played a pivotal role in shaping modern Brazilian society and its economy. Waves of European immigrants, primarily Portuguese, Italians, Germans, and Spanish, arrived from the late 19th century onwards. They significantly influenced agriculture, industry, and culture, especially in the South and Southeast. Japanese immigrants, arriving in the early 20th century, transformed agricultural practices and established strong communities. Lebanese and Syrian immigrants became prominent in commerce. More recent waves of migration from neighboring South American countries, Africa, and Asia continue to add to Brazil's diverse cultural makeup. Each group has contributed unique traditions, skills, and perspectives, enriching the national identity. The interplay between historical conflicts, cultural diversity, and economic development is complex. Wars for territory and resources often came at the expense of indigenous populations. The economic model established during colonial times and the early empire relied heavily on enslaved African labor, leaving a legacy of profound racial and social inequality. Later, conflicts like the War of Canudos exposed the deep divisions between the modernizing coastal elite and the impoverished rural populations, including many of mixed indigenous, African, and European heritage. These historical fault lines continue to influence access to land, resources, and economic opportunities today, shaping patterns of development and inequality. In conclusion, Brazil's journey has been one of constant negotiation between conflict and construction, diversity and disparity. The echoes of past wars resonate in its territorial configuration and its societal challenges. The contributions of indigenous peoples and diverse immigrant waves have created a unique cultural tapestry, but also highlight ongoing struggles for recognition and equity. The nation's economic evolution, from an agro-export economy to a diversified industrial and service-based system, has been marked by booms and crises, often exacerbating existing inequalities. As Brazil navigates the 21st century, understanding these historical and cultural underpinnings is crucial for forging a more inclusive and prosperous future, one where economic development truly benefits all its people.